know the number you want to ask for. And then before you go into the interview, say the number out loud. I think there are three things: proof, potential, and power of advocacy. Leaving time to pause, not filling the gap. That's what I mean by learning to shut up. Like once you've said your thing and explained it articulately and succinctly, wait, I discovered I'm ADHD in my late 40s, and it's become a real passion point for me.
My guest today is Jo Vaughton, a marketing leader with over 25 years experience shaping brands from hospitality to healthcare, FMCG to fintech. She spent over a decade at board level, holding senior positions at Pizza Express, IHG and the Royal Caribbean. Today, Jo is the Chief Marketing Officer at Popeyes UK. Jo's known for helping brands cut through the noise, find their voice, and connect with audiences. Jo, thank you so much for joining me on the Strategic Salary series. I have been privileged to meet you in real life. I know how amazing you are. I know how insightful you are. So I can't wait to share your insights with a wider audience. Thank you.
Well, okay, thank you. I'm just delighted to have another chat with you. I always enjoy our chats, so looking forward to it.
Perfect. So let's get into it. From FMCG to fried chicken, you're now the CMO of Popeyes UK. And I guess I would love for our listeners to know, how did you break into media? And have you always wanted to work in this industry?
Good question. I haven't had a traditional route, so it is a good question. I spent most of my late teens and most of my time at university believing I was going to be a journalist. So I started out wanting to go into journalism. I loved reading, I loved writing, I loved current affairs, and I thought if I can throw in a bit of travel journalism, that would tick that box. So that was my mission, literally from 13, 14 years old. And I was doing work
Wow.
experience on newspapers. But at university, especially in the last years, where I learned more about marketing and PR in particular, and it really sparked something in me, which was why write the news when I can create the news? And that bit really appealed to my creative streak. So I started my career in PR, which developed into comms, into brand, and then into this, full suite of marketing as CMO. Um, and I think it's really interesting because whilst there's definitely areas that I look to bring specialists in around me because I didn't have that as part of my career, I think there's something that comes from starting in PR when you're brand building that's so essential. And it's around storytelling, knowing how to build out a brand's narrative, knowing what is authentic, because you can't sell in a PR story to a journalist unless it's true, unless it's based in truth and it's interesting, that you just don't get the coverage. So to have that foundation in everything I do, I think has really helped.
Thank you for sharing.
All right.
So one thing I ask all guests
Mm-hmm.
is that what is that one thing that you can tell us that we can't tell from your LinkedIn profile or your CV? Who is the Jo behind the CMO title?
It's a great question. I love this question. But I'm terrible at one thing, so you're probably going to get a few. And I
Tell
was
us all.
thinking, I was thinking about this because there's things I could tell you which you might know or obvious. I think one thing that is interesting is half my family are French, and in fact, my mum's dad, my grandfather, was in the French Resistance. And I say that because I actually had a boss once call me the French Resistance because when I set my mind to something or I don't agree with something or I believe something is wrong, I go hell for leather. Like I am, and I really see a bit of that spirit, that fighter spirit from my granddad in me. So I think that's interesting. But what else? What's Joe behind? I mean, I'm a mum of two. I love running. I love cheese. I've written a couple of children's books because I like writing poetry. But the one thing I thought I would focus on is actually, and I know we've talked about this, Lucy, is a discovery I made this past year. So I have an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. And my 11-year-old recently, well, now a year and a bit ago, got diagnosed as neurodivergent. And so it was a shock. We really had no idea. And we've been on a massive journey over this past couple of years, understanding neurodiversity, autism, ADHD. And as part of that, I discovered I'm ADHD in my late 40s. And it's become a real passion point for me. So I say that because it probably is impacting everything from personally understanding myself, my strengths, strategies that I need to build into my day and why I've built them where I need them, through to advocating for my children and their schooling behind the scenes and making time and balance in my life for that, through to making workplaces more inclusive. I feel really passionately about that. The more I understand how much understanding people's um, th- needs and opportunities, if you understand that on a personal level, you can unlock so much for them and for the business. So I think that's a huge passion point behind a traditional CMO role.
If you feel comfortable enough to share,
Sure.
what was the biggest change for you when you got that diagnosis? Has there been anything that you've adopted at work specifically because you've now understood the complete other side of you?
Do you know, when I found out, and I'd obviously taken a little while to process it all, I actually sent an email to my CEO at the time, my boss, to let her know, because I was exec sponsor of the ERG, so the Employee Resource Group for neurodiversity, because of my daughter's journey. I
Right.
didn't even know about myself at the time, and I thought, well, I've got to tell them.
Yeah.
I'm one of you. But I had to tell my boss first. So I let her know, but I put in that email, do you know what? I'm not actually asking you for anything right now, and I know when you have a neurodiversity and ADHD, I know particularly well, you do need to talk to your employer about the reasonable adjustments they need to make to help you. But I'd said to her, I've made those adjustments throughout my life without realizing why. I've built strategies, and you have actually been an incredibly supportive boss anyway, to work around what gets the best out of me. So I'm not actually going to ask you for anything right now, but at least we both now understand me a bit better and how to motivate me and how to get the best out of me. But I wanted you to know that what has got me to CMO, I honestly believe, is my brain. And how it works. An ADHD, there are many things ADHD struggle with, and I don't for a second want to undermine that. And everyone experiences it differently. But for me, it's where my endless optimism, I say that with a laugh because a number of times I'm told by teams that that just isn't possible, what I'm trying to do. But my relentless optimism that anything is possible, my creativity, my ability to see a way through a crisis or issue calmly, my thinking, it's not even that I think outside the box. I don't really see boxes. I remember Chris Sackham saying that once, and I thought that's so right. I don't see the same frameworks other people do.
Right.
So I've jumped between different industries and taken learnings and ways of working from all of them. That is what's made me where I am. And I think I just wanted her to know that, so that a little bit of my news could also hopefully positively impact her view of neurodiversity for others.
There are a lot of people or a lot of listeners that will have this diagnosis and don't feel comfortable enough
Of course.
to speak up in the workplace. And the fact that one of the first things you did was emailed your CEO to let them know, and to also let them know that no changes are required. I've got this handled for now, but you were completely transparent. I think more people should be motivated to speak up, to ensure that the environment they're working in is crafted to allow them to thrive. And luckily, you've done that anyway.
This is where you're going to get me on a right round, because I think one of the biggest problems is the shame that people feel because it has the word disorder, like ADHD in particular. And I'm not for a second saying that it doesn't cause problems in your life.
Right.
And I now at least can recognize those problems that it's caused for me and the challenges it's caused. And everyone, as I say, has that at different scales. It's a spectrum. But I think that one of the problems is that we are expecting, and I see this every day with the fights I have with my children's schools, that we are expecting neurotypical children and adults to work within neurodivergent children and adults to work within a neurotypical environment. And that's what's disabling mostly. That is
Right.
mostly what is disabling. ADHDers, neurodivergents have been around since the start of time, in my belief. I heard a TED talk, or it was a Harvard professor saying, you look back at early civilization, and there was always those people who went exploring, who wanted to move, who explored what's over the next hill. Yeah, they got beaten by saber-toothed tigers a fair amount, but they took risks, they were adventurous, they moved, they explored, they were active. And you had those who wanted structure and built societies, communities, frameworks. And you've always needed both of those in society. The problem is we are now telling children to sit down, shut up, listen, don't move. That does not work for an ADHD brain. Does not work. Their brains are working far too quickly. They have more energy. And I think the same thing could happen in a work environment. If you're expecting a neurodivergent and ADHD are to sit in a 6-hour meeting without moving, you're not going to get them to focus after an hour. And we need to be open to accommodating how to get the best out of I mean, it's basic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Understanding our people and how to motivate them, and that everyone is different. And I think this is just part of that picture.
You mentioned there, it's basic, isn't it? To us, yeah, it seems like common sense, but it just isn't basic. And that goes for a full range of needs. It's just, you touched on it, the current education system. I have so many issues with the way children are taught in state schools.
Some people are visual learners,
Right.
or practical learners, not sit and repeat. I mean, I think back to my schooling, and you have to do this as part of an assessment, ADHD. You've got to be able to trace it back.
Mhm.
Um, and I suddenly look back and I think, oh God, that makes so much sense.
So I mean, I'm personally proud that you are even sharing this amount of detail with us
Oh,
because not many people do. And I think there's so much power in transparency. So thank you for sharing.
oh, you're welcome. And education, like if you don't understand it or know it, read, watch a podcast, learn a bit more, talk to people, ask them.
Watch this podcast. Talk to you. I will move on to the next question.
Yes.
So, Joe,
Yeah.
you have spent over a decade at board level.
Mhm.
What are some of the differences in how pay and progression are discussed at that level compared to earlier on in your career?
No, that's a good question. I think I don't know how much has changed since I started. I would say the time I have spent agency versus in-house, there are differences to how you discuss it because the frameworks are different for people. Um, I think that one thing I would say has always been true is the understanding of what constitutes value to the business. Um, And I say that in marketing, it's so complex because, as I said, I started my career in PR and comms. My first in-house role was comms. Then I moved into brand marketing, and trying to talk about salaries and headcount has always been a massive challenge for PR teams and comms teams because it's one of those roles that you can't demonstrate a commercial return on investment, as
Right.
opposed to, for example, digital marketing at the other end of the scale. So I think those conversations have always been tricky, and I've probably got better at it over, as you would hope, over the time I've been at board level. But I think it is about understanding the value and the long-term potential of the people you're talking to. What has probably changed more is what you have in your armory in terms of package. And I know we're talking salary specifically, but actually, and importantly, it's more than just base salary that you have to play with. And that I say that because it different things can mean different things to different people. Some people are more interested in being able to have a discussion about their flexibility. Others are incentivized by bonuses, for example, or um, or incentive structures. And I think, especially with the rise of flexible working since COVID, you have more you can play with. To go back and to make sure that you're recognizing and compensating people fairly.
I love that you touched on that because personally, I'm registered disabled. I manage several invisible conditions. And yes, I would be lying if I sat here and said, I don't care about salary. Salary is extremely important, but I have a list of non negotiables, and one of those is flexible working. I have to be able to craft an environment that allows me to work from home on the days that I can't physically get into the office. I need to be able to recharge in ways that allows me to show up with my full self when the energy levels are right. So I think it's extremely powerful to highlight that, yes, you do need to negotiate your salary. That's a given. But the hours you work, the days you work, where you work from, healthcare benefits, for example, as someone with so many conditions, private healthcare for me is so valuable. And
Mhm.
a lot of people don't look at these perks as an overall compensation package. It absolutely is. And so is flexible working. I can't put a value on being able to work from home and in the office, and having that flexibility between the two. It doesn't have a monetary value assigned to it, but for me, it's a non-negotiable.
It can be so empowering, right? And what it comes down to is not just looking and thinking about a number, but thinking about your value and your ambitions. Because say you're going into a role and or you're going into a new business and there's huge growth opportunity and you're negotiating your package, but there's a band and that's causing you a challenge.
Yeah,
Like, what about training? Like, if you see
right.
growth potential, going back and saying, I'll tell you what, I'm in comms and I want to move into marketing within your business. I'm committed to being with you long term. I know you can't give me, or, you've gone through, and we'll talk about how we've gone through the negotiations and it's not quite what you want. What about you pay for me to go on a marketing mini MBA? As part, and then we revisit this in 6 months. Like, think about, what about we look at, actually, I've got a child starting school for the first time in September. Can we look at using the salary you're giving me, but I work out a flexible routine that allows me 4 days a week? Like, think about the other things in your armory that add value to you apart from and on top of that base salary.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I just, sorry, I'm taken aback because of the learning and development that you've just mentioned. So a lot of people won't know that companies have these pots of learning and development budgets that are untapped.
Right.
They're so underutilized.
It's your development. It's yours. Go with what you need for your progression. Like, so many team members have got their KPIs already now, which their bonus is measured on. But what about their PDP? They don't put enough thought into your personal development plan. What is it that you need to achieve, either to demonstrate to the business you can be progressed,
Yeah,
or to satisfy your own learning needs and career progression? What is it that you want? And you're absolutely right. Like, if anyone, I would say 95% of people who've come to me and said, I've seen this training course, I'm really passionate about it. This is what it will do for me. This is what it will do for you as a business. I've signed it up, because it is a different pot. And that's so important in house, is understanding the model, the finance model of people, of headcount versus sales and marketing spend, stroke freelancers versus packages versus training. All of these are part of your negotiation.
thank you for sharing. That's insight gold. So if just to summarize there,
Mm.
go and look and inquire about your company's learning and development budget. Have a plan. You mentioned it there. Make sure you articulate the value to the business and to yourself, because that's so important. So, Joe, thank you for sharing.
That's okay.
So, I would
Mm.
love for you to take us back to a time where a pay or progression discussion went left. So, we know more than anyone that sometimes life just pans out and it doesn't go to plan. What happened and what did you learn from this?
That is such a good question. I was really trying to think about this because I'll be honest, I don't think anything has ever gone spectacularly wrong for me. She says, touch wood, like, watch for my next pay review. But there's definitely things I've learned and things that I wish I'd done better in the past. And it's something that I have. So I'd say my career's in two halves, right? The first half of my career, I I was really lucky, maybe, but I also took advantage of having some really great bosses and really great mentors, and I didn't really have to focus too much. I just did well and was promoted, um, and made some good choices in terms of where I went. So my career got to, I would say, in a director level agency side, thanks to graft and really good mentors and bosses. So credit and thank you to them. Um, I think at that point, when I moved from the agency I was at the longest, that's when I had to learn how to negotiate properly. And that's when I actually tapped into, I say my network, but my friends, because you aren't alone at that point. You've got friends in different industries, in different roles, often quite a few at your own, in your own industry. And I just think chatting to them about it. How do you handle this? What would you do? Um, if you've got any friends in headhunting, for example, I have a best friend in headhunting. She is an absolute goldmine when I'm trying to say what normally is a band for this role, or what should I be considering, even when I'm recruiting, let alone for my own search. And that knowledge is so empowering for when you then go into negotiate, because there's two buckets: know your worth, but also know the industry and know
Yeah.
what the benchmark and the boundaries are, because that knowledge is power, and it's that whole, what is it, fail to prepare and prepare to fail piece, like know your argument up front. So I kind of armed myself pretty well with that, as I started to move around and move industry. But I think my biggest, no, I look back and laugh. I think probably one of my biggest challenges was learning to shut up and confidence. And that bit where you go in and you say, oh, when they say, what's your salary expectations? And you tell them what you're on, as opposed to your salary expectations, because you're almost apologizing. And I think, there's probably a lot, especially female, who will sit here and go, oh God, yeah, I've done that, or I do that. Going in, knowing your worth, knowing the number, feeling confident with it and articulating it correctly, and then understanding the different scenarios that could come from stating that number are so critical, and thinking it through. Um, Leaving time to pause, not filling the gap. That's what I mean by learning to shut up. Like, once you've said your thing and explained it articulately and succinctly, wait, because they may just say yes. Like, don't expect them to say no. Um, so a couple of things I would say that I've learned over the course of getting this wrong and slowly getting it right, hopefully. One is, and this was a great piece of advice from a friend of mine. As I say, I used to ask a lot of questions. And she said, know the number you want to ask for. And then before you go into the interview, obviously not in front of people because you'd look like a complete crazy, say the number out loud lots of times, because she said what your brain will do is become comfortable with your voice saying that number. So when you go to say it in the interview, you don't stutter, you don't swallow it. It comes out with confidence because you've trained your brain and your voice to say that number out loud. And that was like, it sounds so simple, but it's
It
so
does.
clever. And it worked. It really worked. So I would say the number, I'd go into the bathroom at home, say the number like in the week leading up once I knew it. And when I was in the interview, it meant I could say it calmly, confidently, articulately, because I'd made myself comfortable with it. The other thing that I do, I'm the breadwinner in the family. And I say that because you go in and you're thinking about you quite a lot in salary negotiations. And I think what helped me once I had kids in particular was to know why I was asking for it. Yes, it was so that I was being recognized for the work I believed I would deliver for the business and the value I would bring. But I also wanted to keep reminding myself I'm doing this for them,
Yeah.
because I want them to be able to go to those clubs and to be able to give them a good life, have holidays, that type of thing. And understanding your motivation for work and for what you want to achieve from work is also important before you go in.
There aren't many people that focus on the why other than I want to be promoted and I want more money. And I do think the way you show up in a negotiation, when you have your why at the core, it
Hmm.
lands completely differently.
I agree.
It, I just think for the person at the other end, they will feel the passion. Even you don't even need to say, I am the main breadwinner and this is what I require. You will feel it through your words. So I think that that's so powerful.
They don't
But
even need to know that, to be honest. And it almost sounds, it doesn't, I would never say that in an interview, because
mm,
I say I would never, unless it was relevant in any way.
yeah,
But it's not the reason that I'm asking for that number. The reason I'm asking for that number, or that package, to go back to my previous point, is because I believe that I'm worth that, and that I will, you will earn multiple by having me in this role. That I will bring that level of value and then some to this role. So that is the bit you need to feel really confident about and understand, because it's about knowing your parameters and knowing the landscape, so that you can go in and say, this is what I will bring to your business by hiring me in particular. And I always finish, when I have to do presentations for job interviews, I always finish with a why Joe slide, and look at what it's all, you do it for brands, right? What's your USP? What is it about you that this business needs right now? Is it that you are a doer, that you can do, you can land and do stuff fast? Is it that you've got a unique bit of experience that they need? Like, what is it? And then you're flying.
I have two questions on that.
Go on then.
So the why Joe Brown slide, I love the concept of that. So talk me through that. You're at the end of an interview process. You end with the why Joe. Are you able to share some things that, even if you can't share what you would put on your slide, some things that our listeners should end with or put on that slide?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think what I put because I did it when I got the job at Popeyes. I'm trying to think what I had on the slide. I had I had my previous experience in the fast food industry because I used to head up the McDonald's account in one of the agencies I worked in.
Yep,
I had that I was absolutely passionate about food and fried chicken, love it, comfort food of choice. I
yep.
put in that um, I I get stuff done. I am someone who has a find a way or make a way mentality. And they're at a point where they need someone who is just going to roll their sleeves up. But that was another one I put. I said I'm not hierarchical. I am as comfortable sitting talking to investors as I am writing a press release. So I'm not someone who's going to come with a huge ego to this role because you're not at a point in your journey where you even have that hierarchy, let alone want it. Not that I think anyone should have it. Another story. Um, I put that I'm trying to think. Oh, that I'd worked, but mine that I wasn't pure food and drink. That my background of working in multiple industries meant that I could bring unique insight into what different ways we could launch so that you're being disruptive. You're not just doing what the rest of the category does. You're thinking about launches in a different way. And I remember saying, I've launched everything from a from baby lotion to cruise ships. So when we launch a new product, I'm tapping into that bank, and that's something you can't get from a lot of people who've only been in hospitality, for example.
People should reconsider the next time they're in an interview session, or it doesn't even need to be for a new employer. Sometimes your current employer needs reminding of who you are, the value, and why you. And I think I love the idea of a why me slide. So thank you for sharing. As a judge for the FEs and campaigns Inspiring Women's Awards, you see firsthand how people craft stories to put their best foot forward. I would like to know, if you were judging someone's career, what proof points would you like to see that makes you feel comfortable to say, yeah, that person deserves to be promoted or that person deserves to be paid more?
Good question. I think there are three things: um, proof, potential, and power of advocacy. Because I wanted to have three P's. Um, Proof is always make sure you're really clear. What have you brought to the role, and
Mhm.
give tangible examples of what it delivered. That's the bit some people miss out. So what was I brought in to do? What did I do, and how did it go? And if that's where the Effies, I absolutely love them because you can have the best, most creative campaign in the world, but it won't score highly unless your results match your strategy and the results are strong. Um, so I would say make sure that you're telling the full picture um, of what you came to do, what you did, and how it went, because that's what people are buying. And don't try and allude to doing something that you didn't. Like if you played a part in it, be clear on the part you played. That's
Yeah.
okay. Just be transparent. Um, the second thing, potential, I think that's looking backwards, right? I think when it comes to negotiating to demonstrating your worth, it's about what's ahead. So your potential. So also think about where you've got room to grow, because potential is commercial gold dust. I'm not buying what you've done. So if you're going in saying I want a pay rise, I want to go from 40 to 45, that's what I should be paid. That's what the benchmark says. And I did all that last week. Unless that demonstrates to me that there's something I know is coming up, or there's work I want done that's not being done that you can do, you're not demonstrating your potential. So always think about what you can do for the employer moving forward if they continue to invest in you and your career. What are you going to bring? Where are you going to go? How far can you go in this business? And what could you do? For example, I did this campaign. I was exploring AI and I developed this. It went really well. Look at the results it gave. And it's led me to believe that there are many other areas in this business that we could apply AI thinking to drive efficiencies or effectiveness or penetrate that new audience you're trying to reach, right? That is gold dust because you're demonstrating why they should continue to invest in you. And then the third thing I thought about was on award entries, you often have quotes, don't you? You have endorsements from media or colleagues or industry clients if you're agency side. And it got me thinking, who are your cheerleaders? Because don't underestimate the power of the collective when it comes to once you're in a role, or even when you're applying, when it comes to that negotiation, like the number of people who will seek second opinion or third opinion or external opinion on you before a decision's made. So always bear in mind that make sure you've got cheerleaders, make sure you're influencing the right people effectively and in good time. Make sure you're bringing people with you. If you're going for a more senior role, what would your team say about you? Would they be happy about this? Are you, that idea of bringing people on your journey with you is so critical. And from a digital perspective, also think about your LinkedIn, especially when applying, because I always look at the recommendation section. I don't know if that's just me, but what are people saying about you? It's so important. It's your brand. How can I see other people telling me what you're telling me is
Yeah,
the same story.
sorry, that for me is eye-opening. So I don't hear very often that I know that recruiters and employers go and look at LinkedIn. It's probably one of the first things you do after looking at the CV. But I didn't realize how much focus was on the recommendations to the point that I'm thinking about my own LinkedIn. There are definitely endorsements there, but I don't actively seek endorsements on an ongoing basis, really.
I would say two things. First of all, if you are thinking of moving or looking to move, or you've been approached and headhunted, I
Mhm.
would absolutely check it. And then send an invite out to people going, would you give me a recommendation? Send some
Yeah,
out, right? If you're having a negotiation within the business you're in and you're looking to stay in the business, then it's about the people around you. They're the ones, no one who already works with you is probably going to go on LinkedIn. They're going to ask people who work with you internally. So LinkedIn is more if you're moving out of your company.
I think it's powerful. I have personally witnessed so many LinkedIn workshops on how to amplify your brand, how to be a thought leader on LinkedIn. I think only two of those sessions touched on recommendations, and that was probably for 10 seconds. It was just, oh, by the way, there's a recommendation bit, update it.
It's
But
advocacy, isn't it? It's endorsement. Like if you
massively,
tell
yeah,
me, Joe, I'm the best at my job, I'd be like, that's wonderful. And you gave me examples. I'm like, that's wonderful. If I had someone else come to me and say, God, she is literally the best in the industry. That is gold dust, isn't it? It's
yeah,
like, well, why aren't I working with her? That's crazy.
thank you for sharing. Now, we are going to wrap up with the random round. First answer that comes into your mind is the first answer that we want. Ready?
Go.
Okay. What is your bedtime routine?
Oh, um, ah, I don't have one. I don't really
That's
like
okay.
anything. I am either, if I'm not working a bit late, which I don't advocate, by the way, I am probably sitting downstairs watching a bit of TV, whatever series I'm catching up with my husband and my cat on my lap. And then it's nothing particularly exciting most days, but every other day I'll try and do a bit of yoga before bed because I find it really helps me unwind and calm my brain down from all the thoughts. I always have a pen and paper by my bed because often as I'm trying to fall asleep or sometimes in the middle of the night, something will come to me. Um, so I'll get it all out my head as much as I can. I check on the kids, turn their lights off.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
That's okay.
What's your go-to hot drink?
Um, Black coffee or mulled wine.
Okay. And with the black coffee, any sweeteners, sugar, or
No, no,
no?
but it's got to be a nice coffee.
Okay, fair. What's your most used emoji?
Probably the crying with laughter. It has so many uses.
Yeah, it does. To be fair, mine's probably very similar. Okay, next question. If you were asked to do a TED talk in an hour's time for 20 minutes, what
Yeah.
subject would you talk on?
Neurodiversity, how we need
Okay,
to make school and workplace much more accessible and empower these amazing brains and the future of them. Don't start me, I'll start going now and you'll have another hour in your hands. 100%.
okay. What's one thing that instantly makes you feel better? So, one small thing that someone can do for you, or one thing that you can do for yourself that instantly makes you feel better.
I mean, the first thing that came to mind was cheese. I'm not going to lie. Um, cheese solves everything. But do you know what? And it's cheesy, but no fun. A smile, just saying thank you, well done. Like, how much does that mean? Like after a meeting, I try and make an effort to go and say that went really well. Well done, you did really well. Especially if you know someone's been nervous. So I
Yeah,
think in the minute recognition is just so powerful.
agreed. Thank you for sharing. And the final question, if you had to select one meal that you would have to eat for the rest of your life, what would that meal be? Jeez, that, yeah, okay. That was an
Cheese.
easy one.
I'm not even lying. A cheese board. And I don't even need crackers. Don't dilute it. Just cheese. I love it. It's the French in me. Do you know what? I remember one job when I left and I said to my boss, I'm doing handover notes. Don't worry, kind of thing. I'm on it. And he went, can you make sure that you put my Christmas cheese board in your handover notes so that I know what I'm ordering in December? Actually, I had to do cheese handover notes in one job.
I mean, I don't know anybody that loves cheese as much
That's
as
the
you.
legacy. No, I
There you
don't.
go.
I had a cheese wedding cake.
Sorry?
Yeah, and not just that. So I had it was 7 tiers of cheese. It was like a whole roquefort, then gavotcha, smoked bean, camembert soaked in calvados, petit long, and it was held up with Comté wedges. But I got married in Marrakesh, and that my wedding dress went in my hand luggage because it was covered in ice. It didn't stink because I was really worried about the temperature not being right in the hold and the cheese getting ruined on the way to the wedding. It was one of my biggest priorities. And my husband, who bless his soul, he's not a natural organizer, didn't really do a lot for the wedding. And the one thing he did do proactively was ring the Moroccan embassy to find out if they would let me bring cheese into the country or whether it was likely to be taken off me at the airport. That's how important cheese is to me, that he knew that could be a disaster.
That is fantastic. I need to see a picture of that wedding cake. That sounds fantastic.
It was amazing.
Joe, thank you so much for first of all making me laugh. I don't think I've laughed. I needed this. Thank you for making me laugh. Thank you for being transparent, passionate. I hope our listeners learn as much as I have today from you because honestly, this has been so insightful. Thank you for sharing your time with me.
I've loved our chat. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
If this episode made you think differently or questioned the way you have a conversation or the way you approach your strategy moving forward, please do me a favour. Hit like, subscribe and share. Your support will help others discover this podcast and keep the conversation going.